Okay, thanks everyone for your patience, and we're just going to get started. So welcome to this community-exclusive conversation. My name is Deirdre Yee, and I want to speak to you briefly about the ServiceMax online community and a little bit about that platform before we get started with our main content and highlighted presenters. So the ServiceMax community is an online platform, and it provides a great resource across the ServiceMax family. This includes our customers, our partners, guests, and people interested in field service, and of course our employee team. So one thing that it provides is insights across all of those audiences in terms of who we are, what comes next in the industry of field service, a great way to build excitement. It also includes a number of great assets where anyone can come to find customer stories, business case, development assets, and a little bit of the personality, vibrancy, and most importantly, the expertise that is offered across our entire network. So this enables people across our guests, our customers, to interact with the content, share content with their colleagues or their peers, create a profile, connect and network, and of course discover great new things. It's a great way to build personal prestige, to meet great people and great experts in field service, and there's of course the promise of more. When people are our customers, there are a number of exclusive customer-only assets, including our knowledge base, product discussion forums, etc. So it's a quick overview of some of the things that can be found in the community. I would encourage everyone on the call to consider, since this is a community-hosted event, considering continuing the conversation. So our lead presenter is Patrice, who will be introduced shortly. There are a number of other great people and experts on the line, including people that aren't presenting. We're really hoping this will be an interactive conversation. And as we posted in the blog post that brought you here, or the email, we will be awarding 5 free copies of the book to any of our customers or guests or partners that have joined and attended. So we will have a drawing for that after the fact in terms of everyone who attended, and be back in touch with an update on who the lucky winner is. So another element to consider in terms of the online community beyond this event, the blog post that may have brought you here, are the many, many features and many assets and resources that you can find, that you can interact with, comment on, provide feedback on. The Find Navigation Guide is a great asset to get to those elements. So you'll find that from the homepage, and you'll find that you can browse according to ServiceMax product or field service topic or trend, finding the people, the places, and the areas to post across the community. And with that, I want to introduce and hand over to Michael Horsley. Michael works at ServiceMax and is the head of customer success over in the European region. Michael, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deirdre. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our ebook webinar today. As Julie said, I'm Michael Horsley at ServiceMax. I work with our customers in the EMEA geography to drive adoption and ongoing value from their ServiceMax solution. Very pleased to be taking part in the webinar and joining you today. It's not every day we get to meet and speak to authors, and it's a real privilege for me to do that today. I'd like to introduce to you Patrice Eberline. Patrice is a VP in our global customer transformation team here at ServiceMax, and author of a book, A Diamond in the Rough, Unleashing the Power of Field Service. So with no further ado, Patrice, can you share with us a little bit about your background, what the book's about, and essentially why you felt now was the right time to kind of write and launch that book for us?
Absolutely. Hi, Michael. How are you? And thank you so much for inviting me. I've been really very much looking forward to this today. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone.
My pleasure.
Welcome, and I hope this is fun and interactive for you. So as Michael said, I'm Vice President of Global Customer Transformation. I work in the Transformation Organization, which is actually kind of unique because ServiceMax really has invested in the domain, and even beyond that, they've invested in a team, the transformation team, and our role is literally to go out and work with customers and prospects to really paint a vision and show how companies can execute and get some real success and real transformation in their field organizations. Now, my background before transformation was really all around implementation, adoption, professional services. I had some 20 years of experience running anything from large global business units to kind of smaller companies, universities, that kind of stuff within software organizations. So it was kind of exciting for me to come over to transformation. And I have to say, the first question, Michael, that's a fun one. Why did I choose to write the book? So honestly, it was a little self-serving. Given that I spent over 20 years in professional services, when I moved over to transformation, think of it, this organization is funded and focused on helping customers through their journey. Well, one of the first things I wanted to do was search out anything and everything that had been written on the domain of field service and really get into my customers' heads. Well, it kind of turned out it was a short list, and perhaps more on theory than real-world service understanding, real-world impact, things of that nature. Further, I was getting questions from our customers and our prospects alike around basic strategies, basic domain understanding, and it really seemed like the time was right to put a book out there. The book, Diamond and Rough, is focused on field service, from the basics of the impact it can have on a company's bottom line, and actually, indeed, competitive differentiation. That's one of my pet projects that I love, to key metrics and things that can really move the needle if they're focused on. Even approaches to building a business case for service technology. That's not something that's been done traditionally over the field service history. And really pushing through to execution, strategies for adoption, and of course, here comes my professional services hat, continuous improvement success. So that's kind of what it's about and the reason that I wrote it.
So Patrice, you mentioned there a couple of times key kind of metrics, and in talking to customers and putting together the book, could you kind of highlight a few of the key metrics that our customers were kind of highlighting as the key to driving the field service operation within their business as you went about putting the book together?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a ton of metrics out there, and when you speak with field service leaders, they literally can rattle off 20, 30 metrics that they're trying to get a handle on and focus on. What we wanted to do in the book was take all that noise, if you will, and really boil it down to some solid, successful metrics that you can really get some good success. Now, we kind of highlight 9, what we call the universal 9 in the book. And although there are a number of metrics that can literally make the difference in your field service organization and company, I guess there's 1 or 2 that really stand out for me. The first one is first-time fix rate. Now, that one really can move the needle in performance. If your field team can increase the percentage of times that they arrive and fix issues in one trip, you don't only affect utilization of your field team or productivity of your field team, but you're positively impacting cost, you're positively impacting customer satisfaction, and if you want to flip that over a bit, flip the coin a bit, if you don't focus on that metric, you can literally have thousands, and I've seen even tens of thousands of dollars in a month tied up in these multiple trips and these truck rolls just to keep up with competition that's running at a higher first-time fix. So first-time fix rate is really key. We have others in the book, things that I'm sure many of the attendees here have heard about and maybe even monitor, things like mean time to repair, service level agreements, leakages that can certainly happen because field teams at their core, they're problem solvers, they're people helpers, so that can be kind of a fun one to deal with. If we have a moment, let me just throw another one out there because there's a whole notion of understanding where your equipment is, particularly if your company manufactures equipment and resells it. Let's call it another diamond mine, if you'll forgive the pun. Just think of the impact if you knew where pieces of your equipment are. So that whole bit around installed base and looking at installed base and figuring out what's out there and being able to get more of that under contract, that's also incredibly impactful. So we focus on 9 or so in the book There's a lot that you can do even just by looking at those 9, and they can have impacts and ripples in the pond that go beyond the field service organization per se.
So it's clear, Patrice, that the kind of metrics are important, and just kind of tying back to, you know, the title of the book. It's about unleashing the kind of power of field service transformation. So in terms of those metrics and how you start on that transformation journey, you know, a key part of that is the kind of business case that you need to put together. So just kind of share with us your kind of experience of how you see our customers going about putting together that foundational business case to start on this kind of transformational journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really great question. It's one of my loves as well. So I guess this comes a bit with my professional services hat or my ServiceMax services hat, if that makes sense. You know, building a business case, first of all, most service leaders have to somehow substantiate and support an investment in field service technology. And typically that's done, well, in a rather fragmented manner. There might be kind of an ROI, an expected gain that you get by putting in a system. But really the key to doing that is to show alignment and put together a comprehensive business case where you're showing the objectives of the field organization, the things that gate that and that don't allow those goals to be realized, align that within your organization, and then substantiate it with real executable plans. So the business case is some way to do that. You know, you'll no doubt have to execute on any plan you get approved. So the best way to do it is to have a realistic assessment of where you are and where you want to go. Tie your goals to the company goals. Use field service-specific levers to impact and execute on that plan, and you'll be in really good shape. And in the book, we kind of lay that out. We kind of walk you through creating a business plan, what you need to have, what you need to think about, the way you march forward. But I will say that there's a tip, Michael, and I guess this is kind of a personal tip, not only for the initial investment in a service implementation or a service management system, but also ongoing. Build a business plan, use a business plan, and continue to use it. It can certainly garner a great deal of support. You can get initial investment from your CFO. You can do great things by putting in a system and getting all the ducks in a row. But it's also a great way to support continuous improvement. Because wherever you start, that's where you start. This is a journey. And there are some things that are outside of everybody's control. Just think of it in the news this week with the things going on in the economy. The service organizations that we speak with today are not the organizations that we'll speak with next year. There's just too much change going on. So you have to be able to adapt and move and realize new goals, new strategies, and new objectives. Using that business plan, coming up with that nice, succinct statement, and that way to support the direction and the strategies you're moving forward on, that is only goodness when it comes to continuous improvement.
So Patrice, you raised a couple of interesting points there about, you know, the fact that the economy is changing and taking customers on this kind of transformational journey, which is all about change. So again, in terms of implementing and managing change in the organizations that we work with, just kind of share with us kind of 2 or 3 kind of tips around that you would have for the people that are on the call. I guess how to manage change successfully based on your experience.
How to manage change. You know, that's a whole domain of its own, and I'm sure that there are people out on the call that are kind of nodding to themselves, and that's something that can be pretty important. It can make or break it. Managing change really comes down to a few things. It comes down to knowing where you're going, understanding the impact that it's going to have on various stakeholder groups. So not only what we all think about when we think of field service, we think about the technician or the field engineer, but also your line management, also your dispatchers, your planners, even the C-suite and the culture of that group, and the culture of that group as it pertains to, you know, what we're trying to accomplish from a revenue perspective, from a goal perspective. Managing change, secondly, is all about communication. You simply have to realize that as people, change is tough. And whenever you start a transformation journey, you got to kind of accept that and look at what you think those tough areas are going to be and plan for them accordingly. You know, I was reminded of this literally just a few weeks ago when I was speaking with a customer, and from the top down, there was some great communication. but honestly, it was probably a little overstructured, and it was not nearly as frequent as I think it probably needs to be. And what do we all do? In the absence of communication, we make it up. We never make it up in a positive way. So managing change is all about kind of understanding your stakeholders, understanding what you're trying to do and why. But here's the biggie, communicating that. Communicating it effectively to all levels of the organization, multiple channels, and as frequently as you possibly can.
Thanks, Patrice. I'd just like to kind of open it up and see if you have any questions right now from the people that are on the WebEx. Deirdre, do we have any questions coming through on chat?
I haven't seen any yet, so everyone, please feel free to post your questions in chat or to go ahead and just unmute yourself and speak up. I did have a question myself, Patrice, if you don't mind. You know, I was just wondering, in terms of field service representatives as the face of the company, I know that that's, you know, what our customers may see of us when we're a field service organization. So I'm just curious if you see that their experience being face-to-face with the customer and the value that they can provide there, if that is utilized or if it could be better utilized?
Yeah, that's, I think it's starting to be, I guess, is the short answer. You know, today companies are, well, they're facing tremendous pressures, as we were talking about. Everything from the economy and certainly competition. There's this whole adage of staying relevant and modern, even cutting edge, and that's becoming more and more important. And of course, there's this mantra, compete or get left behind, which today is becoming even more and more important. So it increasingly pushes the C-suite across all businesses. But in the face of that, companies are looking at all aspects of their offering, all aspects of their company, and all organizations within that umbrella to provide best-in-class service to their customers, to hit those financial goals, and to really generate that high loyalty. I tend to call it customer stickiness because that's what you want. You want a long and kind of sticky relationship with your customers. So it stands to reason that the field team is looked at here. Now, I think we all have experiences in our past where the field engineer, the technician, that's our trusted advisor. I know I certainly have, and some of you have heard horror stories, but it's true. We look at those folks from a trusted advisor perspective. They're the ones who understand us. They get the experience and what we're dealing with day to day. We're starting to see that those relationships, that history with the customer, the observations that are made over what could be years of service, that can be the key for many companies today. So I guess, yep, I think it's starting to be. Do I think there's opportunity there? Oh, heck yes, I absolutely do.
So a lot of this is the tale of two companies within the book, and I was just wondering if you could give us kind of share a real-world experience from the field.
Sure.
Context.
Sure, absolutely. You know that word transformation, it takes all shapes and all sizes. It can occur in all types of companies, all verticals, and I've always considered part of my role, really in any organization that I've been with, to be that of a story collector as well as a storyteller. So those stories in the book that you read, those are real. I remember listening to one of my customers talk about the fear of moving from a cost center mentality to a profit center, and that can be pretty big. You know, he wanted to get some focus on potential revenue opportunities out there. He had been a cost center, and as many of you know, if you are operating within that cost center structure, you're kind of relegated or limited to indirect contribution, right? You move to a profit center, that's a whole new ball game, and all of a sudden you've got these revenue goals. Well, he thought that if he started to do that, he would alienate his field team. So he started small. He started offering certain field techs that looked like they were kind of interested in maybe breaking out of a traditional break-fix mold, an opportunity to learn some additional skills. And I remember I was on the phone with him. We were actually in the middle of an implementation, and he was expanding his use of ServiceMax. And he was working with these guys to help them understand that whole contract relationship and how they could potentially assign new equipment to an existing contract. So nothing that's going to upset the apple cart, nothing that was going to turn over the boat. The next quarter, he was absolutely thrilled to see that not only had a certain percentage of his field team embraced that notion, but there was starting to be some friendly competition around the contribution that they, as field engineers, could make to the field service team. Now, before I let anybody go on here, I do want to say not every technician embraced that, and that's okay. The field engineers that did, well, I guess I gleaned that they had an incredible approach. They really felt that to truly serve their customer, they had to make sure they were on the best equipment for their situation and the best coverage for their comfort level, right? So to them, this was an extension of service. I don't think anyone can argue with that, so it was definitely a win-win all around. But he did find some significant contribution increases and really kind of that eye-opening moment of, hey, this is a change that's going to be embraced by at least a certain part of my team. It's something that we can culturally adopt and get some great success for our customers off of. Is that what you were?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great story. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So Patrice, it's Michael. In the book, you talk about this kind of transformational journey around field service, which kind of suggests to me that there is a starting point and that there's a journey to a desired place in the future. So in terms of putting together the book and the work that you've done at ServiceMax, are there some tools and techniques that you've developed to help kind of customers start that journey and kind of track where they are on that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that the transformation team at ServiceMax does, in addition to working with our customers and with our prospects, and hopefully producing some great content that you all will enjoy, is developing what I think is shaping into a tremendous domain education program. But additionally, we're developing tools that support our customers' success. And we've recently released a couple of these. One of them is a business value realization tool, but one of them, which I think might speak to what you're asking about, is a service maturity model. And they've generated some incredible dialogue and I guess some eureka moments with our customers, if that makes sense. We've been thrilled to get this out there, and I think it's, as a result of a lot of those questions coming up about where am I and where can I go and how do I compare, all the things that perhaps some of you on the phone might be thinking. Now, I don't know, I'm kind of checking here, so forgive my looking back and forth, but I think we might have Mark Homer on the phone, who's done a good deal with particularly that maturity tool. Let's see. Michael, are you able to see, is Mark Homer on the call?
I think Mark is on the call. Mark, hey Mark, so can you kind of share some insight into the kind of maturity tool that Patrice identified there?
Sure. Hi, Patrice. Hi, Michael. Congratulations on the book, Patrice. Fantastic. You put me on the spot. So we've had quite a few discussions, quite a lot of assessments that we've been running the maturity assessment throughout Europe. And I think without exception, everyone's found the tool very useful, quite thought-provoking. No two customers, no sort of session has been the same, but many share the same challenges. So I think probably the biggest benefit is you're looking at your business from various perspectives. You have an opportunity to benchmark your organisation in sort of 18 to 20 odd different ways. And I think without doubt it's quite interesting when you look at what the gut feel of the team that are contributing to the assessment feedback and what the evidence, we have a number of evidence-based questions, plus we look at some of the metrics themselves. So you've mentioned a few of the metrics, like mean time to repair, first time fix. We actually do some collection of that data. And then we compare it with some industry research, organisations like TSIA, Gartner, Aberdeen, for example, and also data that we've collected that our customers have granted us to use in an anonymous way, so we can sort of benchmark industry sectors. And it's been quite amazing, really. I guess sort of you asked sort of what were the big surprises. I think it's like anything, when you drill down into the data and you look at the interplay of metrics, it gives you those business insights, and you can sort of see what the gaps are, and then really the discussion then moves on about how we can close those gaps. And I've had quite a number of eureka moments. I think that the biggest surprise was that one organisation that were actually doing their service work order debriefs at the end of the week, and simply by having a discussion about the parts transfer to the install base and giving them visibility of the cost of actually doing that versus actually doing your debrief in same day on the job, as it were, real time, was just amazing. So I'm sure you've experienced a similar sort of things in the work that you've been doing in the North American market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I love about that tool, Mark, as well, is that it really takes a holistic approach to service maturity. So it's not just focused on any one thing. And I think that when you do it that way, you're able to almost kind of surprise yourself, seeing kind of where you are versus where you thought you were, and then maybe where that compares with others in your domain, others in your vertical. Those conversations are really, really impactful, and it helps focus and prioritize kind of the goals for the next quarter or the next year, that kind of thing. So we've been thrilled to get that out and see the effect of that on our community here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things. I mean, the world of field services is kind of moving very, very quickly, Patrice. We have stories in the press about wearables. We have stories in the press around the Internet of Things, and we have stories around connected services and kind of outcome-based services. How can customers kind of decouple some of the mystique around those things and look at how those things can enable them to be a better field service organization based on your experience?
Yeah, that's a big question. There are so many ways that I could answer that. Let me take a stab at it and see how we do.
I know it's a tough question, but I'm sure that our audience are kind of grappling with those things and trying to understand and demystify them. So I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it's great. It's very fair because it's what everybody's facing right now. It's what everybody's thinking about. You mentioned wearables. It's funny because one of the things that I've focused on quite a bit has been around the talent shortage, right? And when we first started talking about this whole Internet of Things and wearables, people were saying, and this was years ago, right? They were saying, oh, that's never really going to hit our radar. But it has. As a matter of fact, in certain segments, in certain verticals, wearables are now not a nice to have. They're kind of a requirement, right? You want to make sure that your technicians that are 250 up and 50-mile-an-hour winds are doing okay. You want to make sure that those folks that are out on a rig that you can't necessarily see and touch and understand that they're also okay. So that kind of a thing is an interesting thing to watch. The IoT, Internet of Things. Internet of Things is kind of like a diving board. It's going to project and propel companies and organizations just incredibly in the future. For example, IoT, the data that's going to come out of that, is going to help form that basis of predictive maintenance. So if I have data on how my machines are behaving, then I can start to trend and predict future behavior, which will in turn allow me to positively affect customer loyalty, competitive differentiation, all that fun stuff. It's also going to launch an entirely new domain of understanding this huge amount of data and looking for the nuggets that can make the difference in companies. I think new trends like this go through a few stages. The first is when we don't understand what they are. We're all talking about what is IoT. Second trend, we're all talking about it, but we're not really affecting it. We just know how to use it in a sentence, if that makes sense, right? And now we're in this period of time where we're starting to bring it down to discrete, granular, actionable types of things. The way we do that is honestly to look at where we are as a field service organization and start taking a look at kind of our performance. And if we had more data, how would that positively affect things? So when I was working with a customer last week, we got down to some really granular conversation. We were talking about, what do I even do with this? Do I put a sensor in a machine? Why would I do that? And we looked at, let's take a look at the types of work that you're doing. Do you have any surprise moments? Is anything catching you kind of with your pants down, if you will, and oh my gosh, we're having to run and play kind of catch up on that? Well, there are definitely a few instances that things kind of caught him by surprise. Well, let's take a look at those products, at that product line, at those scenarios, and see if having more data could help you avoid that. Because honestly, I think any field service leader would tell you that if you want to go to nirvana, you reduce your break, fix, emergency, oh my gosh, get somebody out here now work, and you start moving absolutely into that preventive maintenance and that proactive analytics, and let me take care of this machine the way I know it needs to be taken care of to get you, my customer, the most value out of it over the long run. All of that moves us towards this area of outcome-based service, where I'm going to remove the risk from my customers. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to hassle about that. I know how to take care of that machine, and I'm just going to sell you and guarantee you the outcome or the value of utilizing that equipment. But to start, you got to really kind of boil it down to the basics. You got to look at where do you think it could have the most immediate impact, and then how do you see that kind of fitting in and dovetailing with where you want to grow and expand in the future. So it's definitely not a short conversation, and it's definitely not one conversation. It's something that you kind of work with and iterate on.
Hi, Patrice. It's Sarah here. Just leading on from that, is there a pothole really that you see a lot of organisations fall into regularly? Because I appreciate there's a lot of data and there's a lot of areas you're covering in your book. But I wondered if there's a repeated pattern that you see time and time again. You sort of wish you could say to people, always look at this one thing.
Yeah, you know, there are quite a few, and I'm chuckling only because I've been guilty of them in my past as well, if that makes sense. There are a few, actually. You know, we all have a tendency to go to our comfortable place, which for many of us gets us into kind of trouble. Things like analysis paralysis. We're trying to boil the ocean, put everything in at once, that kind of thing, and not realizing that this is kind of a pragmatic journey. Also, there's this great tendency to shy away from measuring things. That's always a fun one, particularly if you haven't been measuring things in the past. So as we see organizations that might absolutely be doing well in their field service, but maybe haven't targeted some of the metrics in the book or looking at kind of where they are and where they want to go, that can be a little tough. And as we know, any road will do if you don't know where you want to go. So benchmarking, continuous improvement, monitoring, all of that stuff, those are potholes that the companies can fall into. And it kind of goes back to the first thing I was saying, and it might seem trite, but it's very true. This truly is a journey, and it's something that you're going to see that you're going to get success off of every single quarter. And every single quarter, you'll look at what's going on in your industry and with your competition, and you'll tweak it just a little bit so you can stay ahead of that curve and you can stay best in class, segment leader in whatever your business. So anything that kind of prevents that and kind of puts you into a little bit of a silo or get stuck somewhere, those are the potholes that I hate to see happen in organizations.
Hey, Sarah. I've got a question for Patrice from a guest, an audience member. Robin Meredith wants to know that you mentioned, and we all agree, that change can be difficult, not to mention costly and totally and completely resource intensive. Larger organizations typically have the resources necessary to embrace service transformation, but what's your advice to the smaller companies who see the value of exploiting ServiceMax but sort of justify to justify that journey or struggle to justify that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we all kind of think in terms of these big field service organizations and sometimes get a little bit wrapped around the axle on not only the investments that they can make, but even the time. And when we're talking about smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations, you know, people play multiple roles. They have multiple hats every morning they put on, and sometimes it can seem a little daunting. And how do I affect this, and how do I move the needle forward? Honestly, it's the same process, right? I mean, you look at your organizations and what you're trying to accomplish. And when I speak with mid-sized organizations, that can be as easy as, hey, I would love to see if I could get a little more productivity out of my field team. Okay, let's take a look at what they're doing now. Are there places that maybe we can affect some capacity and give them some capacity in that area? I'll give you an example which might make it kind of easier. So we have an organization that I worked with a couple of months ago, and it sticks in my mind because it was not a large organization, and they kind of were timid about jumping into this. But one of the things that they wanted to do was to see if there was any way they could get a little bit more productivity, because honestly, they were in that situation where they were being beaten out by competition because they just weren't able to do as many work orders. They weren't able to do as much productive churn of those work orders as they wanted to. And we started talking about stuff and talking about things, and we affected a few things that, yes, they were in the system, but they allowed their field engineers to focus on what their field engineers do best, which is working with the customer, strengthening the relationship, dealing with the equipment, and really getting that customer loyalty. All that stuff that's manual, all that stuff that takes up time and really doesn't have any added value, we were able to kind of skinny down and remove that. Now, what happened was that they were able to get more productivity out of their field techs, not enough for what I will call another truck roll. But that's okay, because it's not that you have to get enough productivity increase for another truck roll. It's that you have extra capacity. What do you want to do with it? And here's what they chose to do with it. Small organization, right? But they need to show the love to their customers because they're being eked out a little bit by their competition. So by getting a little extra capacity in their field team, they were able to take that time and have their field engineers go around and do what you guys might hear of as kind of health checks or I've heard some of our customers call well baby checks, things of that nature. Kind of stop by while they're in the area. How are things going? Hey, I know you had trouble with that machine last week. I had a little extra time. Do you mind if I just take a quick other look at it? That type of thing, those small little improvements, those touch points that are really impactful, particularly since oftentimes with large companies, you lose that human touch, right? And all you're dealing with is a press one for English kind of a approach to things. That human touch has really started to show as far as customer sat scores for them increasing. So yes, sometimes it's a little more difficult because maybe you don't have the full funding of a really large organization, but it's the same approach. What are you doing now? What can we do to maybe remove the stuff that's not adding value to you and your field team, and then use that capacity in ways that it increases that customer loyalty, perhaps increases some revenue, maybe it increases the attach rate a bit, and keeps those costs down. Same approach, just a little different way of hitting it.
Hey, Patrice, I've got another question for you. I know most people on this call know how complex field service is. So do you think that most C-level executives understand the complexity of field service? And what would you recommend for a chief service officer or a leader of service should do in terms of improving the visibility of the service organization? Any tips or thoughts?
Can I give you a tip that says have them read the book? Is that bad? I'll tell you why I'm chuckling, Mark. Because there are a couple of powerhouses, right? When you think of a field service transformation, you always think of the two powerhouses that will affect something really, really well in any implementation, and that's the IT, so say the CIO, which might make some of you gasp, but that is true, the CIO and the business leader, right? So we want them to kind of join together. But from a C-suite perspective, yeah, that was one of the things that we thought of when we wrote this book, is that there are a lot of C-suite folks, whether it's the CFO, the CEO, the CIO, or even the CDO, the Chief Digital Officer that we're starting to see come up, right, that maybe don't understand the impact that their service organization can have. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to write the book in the format that it's in. Hopefully it's easily digestible, maybe even a little fun read if that makes sense, but it starts focusing and helping the C-suite really understand what can be if they utilize what I'm still going to refer to as their greatest resource, that field engineer and that field technician, to its fullest and to that team's fullest. So I guess my tongue-in-cheek answer would be give them a copy of the book and see if that helps paint that picture for them.
Okay.
Hi, yes, sorry, just coming off mute. It was a little bit more related back to Rob's question around justifying the business case. And you've obviously talked a lot about that return on investment. And I just wondered if there was an area that you could suggest that is a quick way to make some profit and start to show that business case a little bit for smaller and larger organizations.
Kind of like maybe a lever in that business case that might really impact bottom line? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, because you talked a bit about that first-time fixed rate and there's leakage, and you've got a graph in your book which really stood out for me. I think Nikki's got that on screen now. I just wondered if there's some areas there that you could talk about that would be an easy way to make some profit quickly and identify that as part of your early transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple things, and I'm actually just looking at the screen now, so this is an interesting one. You know, I guess I would say the one smack dab in the middle, that revenue attach rate, is really intriguing, and I'll tell you why. An attach rate can be the lifeblood of a field service organization. What it represents is stable and predictable revenue, which will even make a CFO smile. And believe me, I've watched it, and I took a picture once. So, I mean, that will even make a CFO smile, right? That service revenue attach rate, the ability to pull additional customers under contract, which is typically done at point of sale, right? But the ability to pull more product and more equipment under contract can really, really drive profit in a field organization. You know, there are two types of attach rate. There's the attach rate, which is typically the responsibility of the sales organization, done at point of sale. And then there's the attach rate that if you can't catch it then, catch it in the field team, right? Or particularly as you're running around and your organization is serving your customers, if you notice that there is equipment that is not being serviced by you that you certainly could service, putting that under a contract rather than doing kind of a T&M, that will generate some solid and predictable profit. So as I'm looking at the slide here, I agree with all of it. Those are some of my favorites. Some of it is more cost-cutting, some of it is more competitive differentiation, but if we're talking about ways to bring dollars into the business in a recurable fashion, smack dab in the middle, that's the attach rate.
And Patrice, this is Deirdre. I had another question. I was interested when you were talking about potholes and kind of gaps and things that people don't realize or that they need to invest in or spend time on. I kind of want to look at the flip side of that. So in terms of the time you've spent with clients, you know, what are some of the most rewarding or impressive or sort of impactful experiences you've had working with clients?
Wow, that's a good one, because this is going to sound just a little odd when we're recording this. Oh Lord. Okay, I love this. I love my role. I love what we're doing for customers. I think I love it because we're actually helping them see change, and it's not a one and done. It's something that they go back to kind of every year. So the things that have been most impactful for me, I guess, have been that ongoing continuous improvement stuff. I'm all about continuous improvement. I'm all about learning to manage a growing and changing system. And I'm really thrilled when I can see folks that have come from either very structured kinds of ways and are learning to be more flexible and agile and responding to the environment, or for those folks that maybe haven't maybe invested in field service in the past, if that makes sense, and haven't had the support of putting a tool in place and putting a strategy in place and focusing on that. That's what I just love. I just love watching that. I think that everybody at ServiceMax, I hope that our participants here will find that everybody at ServiceMax kind of feels the same way, that this is never a one and done for us. These relationships that we're making with our customers, hopefully they're the same kind of relationships that our customers are making with their customers, which are sticky and long-term kinds of relationships. And with that, you get the benefit of helping them adjust as they see fit, giving them the tools at their fingertips that allow them to put the pedal on the gas and go as fast as they want and turn the wheel in whatever direction makes sense for their particular challenges and their particular goals and objectives.
There's some fantastic cartoons in this book.
I love that.
And we just wanted to know, and Gabe, inquiring minds want to know, which one is your absolute favorite? And you got to give us a little background on these cartoons.
Yeah, I do have to give you a little background on the cartoons. So what I love about those cartoons is that they have come from our customers and people in the business of field service. And when we did this, and I think this was, about a year ago, when we asked people to submit cartoons, and you should have seen what was submitted. It was just a kick in the pants to go and sit and kind of cull through all those and look through them. We tried to pick the best of the best to kind of break it up. Again, this is kind of fun stuff. I mean, this is exciting stuff. This is stuff where you're watching organizations change. What I love about those cartoons is that they're real. But my favorite, now I will tell you, my favorite changes all the time. But I really do love the one where the elevator gets stuck with the photocopier technician in it. So they have to call a tech to rescue the tech. Now, honestly, that seems like a little bit odd, but I think I've seen that a few times in my life. So, and I truly am one of the few individuals in the world who's been stuck in an elevator. So that kind of makes me chuckle every time I look at it. But we kind of sprinkle them through the book. They're interesting and they're fun because they come from our customers and they come from people who are really in the business of field service.
Yeah, they do add really fun elements to the book. Yeah. We did have another question.
Yeah, hi Patrice, it's Michael. I think what you shared about what's in the book, and there's a huge amount of content in there that I'm sure the folks on the phone will kind of read and digest. But just kind of interested to know what areas would you explore in a second book? Because as we know, everyone has a book inside them, and maybe you have too. So just share with us, what didn't get in the first book, and where would you go with kind of a further book?
That's a great question, and I'm grinning from ear to ear over here. Yeah, field service is really such a gold mine. Hang on, I guess it's a diamond mine, right? So field service is such a diamond mine, if you'll forgive the pun, that I was a bit tasked to boil it down in that first book. There was a good deal of cutting, honestly, but we wanted that book to be received really well all around. We wanted it to be an easy and hopefully fun read, and one of those books that hits the highlight points and hopefully leaves at the least the audience kind of intrigued and interested in discovering more. So I do wish that we've been able to hit particularly that service maturity as well in maybe a really comprehensive way in the first book. It just didn't quite make it, particularly around, the questions that we're often asked about how do I compare, what might the next step be in my trajectory, all of that. It's an incredibly relevant topic. So I wish that had made the first book. However, I am going to take you one further. I'll go back to that diamond line. There is just so much out there that we can discuss and talk about across field service that, honestly, Michael, there's at least another book or two out there. I'm already kind of structuring things out and sketching things out. Just think of the changes that we're watching that are happening right now. The IoT that we're talking about, the impact on the customer, the impact on the field, and really the business of field service. Changes in the landscape of talent, as an example, or the changing role of the technician. It used to be the technician was literally the guy that went out and fixed it. And by the way, was literally the guy that went out and fixed it. Now, the role of that technician is changing incredibly, and hopefully it's the guy or the gal that's going out and not only fixing something, but proactively maintaining something and generating a whole new depth of relationship with the customer. The impact of augmented reality on service efficiency is going to be huge, so it's something that definitely will be in a new book, and as we explore that. And the very real move, I think I mentioned a little before, but we're starting to explore this and really having great success, moving towards outcome-based services, where organizations are selling the outcomes, selling value guarantees. And really, those are just off the top of my head. I mean, you should see me over here. My hands are going. You would love it and crack up, Michael. There are service strategies around expansion and revenue growth, understanding that install base, and even topics around supply chain and things that we can really do to affect kind of organizations outside of field service by just focusing on field service. All of that is going to be part of the landscape of the service domain. And I think all of it will lend itself very, very nicely to at least one or two more books. There's just so much out there that we can talk about, and I'm really looking forward to doing so.
Well, that's great to know, and I'm sure that the people on the phone can kind of feel the passion and excitement that you have for the industry. I'd just like to check if we have any other questions on chat. Any other questions coming in that are new, or questions that we haven't covered so far?
I haven't seen anything new, Michael.
Okay, so I'd just like to, we talked about the book a number of times, and I'd just like to confirm, how can people who may not have had the book already, how can people actually get hold of the book, Patrice?
So we definitely have the availability of the book. The book is actually available on Amazon for download. You can get it right to your Kindle player on your PC or your tablet. Any old tablet would do as well. We also have them for download. So if you go to our site, you'll be able to go ahead and give us some information, and we will download a PDF copy for you.
That's from the ServiceMax website, yeah?
Well, I would love it also, as people kind of start to read the book, I'd love to hear from you, what you think of it, what you might think might be good for us to put in another book or a next version, if you will, because I'm thrilled with the response we've had so far, but I'm always eager to talk to folks about their field service journey and what they're doing and how they're doing it and what they're seeing from the benefit of that.
So I'd like to bring the call to a close. Patrice, really like to thank you for taking the time today. I know that the book has been a kind of labor of love for you. There's lots of insights in there around how our customers, as you described it, can harness the power of field service to lead their transformation journey. There's lots of fantastic content in there. As Patrice said, we'd like to have a dialogue. We'd like to get your feedback about the book and for you to share your thoughts on the book. We certainly look forward to the next book, Patrice. I won't put you on the spot to say when that's going to be, so don't worry about that. But I will do when I see you next time. So thanks to everyone that joined the call today for your contributions and your comments, your interest in the book, and your interest in ServiceMax. We certainly look forward to hosting you and talking to you again on future webinars and at ServiceMax events. As Deirdre said at the outset of the call, be sure to check in on the community site. It's not just about ServiceMax, the community. It's really around getting insights on from your peers in the field service space. There's content on there around our solution, and importantly, information on there about our future events, which we'd very be interested to see you at in the future. So thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions today.
Thank you.